Well, hey, how are you? Come on up, have a seat. You know the drill. I was thinking about family customs and traditions, the way one does this time of year, what with Thanksgiving coming on. Oh, speaking of Thanksgiving, I want to talk to you about this pipe. Looky here. Boy, that's a beauty, isn't it? That's a Ron Smith pipe from Ron's Free Hands, Dandridge, Tennessee. That's a lovely gift. And positively tigerific. That grain and the orange finish, boy, that's top notch. And it's a good smoker too. I've had it. Well, it'll be a week Thursday. I'll tell you, it's hard to put down. I got a new pipe, and I'll just smoke the living heck out of it. Which is good, then there's no living heck in it. So, I was thinking, as I said, about family customs and traditions, as one does during this approaching festive season. My great-grandfather Tiger had a custom, and I imagine that he inherited it, honestly, of asking, when he visited the homes of his children, "Do you have any cake?" Now, this was the beginning of a strange ritual. If the answer was yes, then the ritual was satisfied, and it ended with everybody having cake and coffee. But if there was no cake, the ritual proceeded. Do you have the stuff to make one? If the answer was yes, then the cake got baked. And if the answer was no, what do you need? And if the answer was yes, then the cake got baked. And if the answer was no, then he would go to the store and buy whatever was needed and bring it back. And then the cake would be baked. When I say cake, I mean the one and only cake that is appropriate to the Tiger family's Stomp cake ritual. That's what it's called, the Stomp cake ritual. That is a yellow cake with homemade caramel icing. Now, I say caramel, and you're thinking, oh, it's got cream in it. No, it doesn't. Well, not really. What it has in it is butter, quite a lot, brown sugar, quite a bit, and that's it. It's butter and brown sugar, and it's cooked in a pan until it becomes suitable for frosting a cake. You're saying, that's butterscotch. Maybe, but we call it caramel. Ah, the neighbors. Mostly nice folks. Well, that's the vague, bare outline of the Stomp cake ritual. But there are moments when it or any family ritual play out in the most poignant sort of way. I was at my mother's house, the old house, and it was my grandfather's birthday, my granddaddy Tiger's birthday, the 1st of February. And we were sitting and remembering him and my father, whose birthday was the very next day. He only missed my grandfather's birthday by a few minutes. Well, we came to a point on that chilly, damp February the 1st afternoon, where the conversation lagged, just a natural lull. And I said to my mother, "Do you have any cake?" A smile crossed her face, and she said, "No." And I said, "Do you have the stuff to make one?" And she said, "Most of it." And I said, "What do you need?" And she told me. And I got up right then, and I went to the store, and I bought the rest of what she needed, and I came back. It's hard not to say come back home, but it wasn't my home anymore. And it hadn't been for years. I was married by then, living in Sevier County. And I brought the stuff in, and my mother already had the cake in baking. She thought she was smart. "Oh," she said, "come on in the kitchen." And I did. And I stomped around, and stomped around, and stomped around. And then I opened the oven door and slammed it a couple of times to make the cake fall. That's the thing about the stomp cake ritual. It's the duty of the man to make the cake fall, just as it's the duty of the woman to bake the cake. And it did fall. Why would that be important? And the answer is because where it falls has to be filled in, made level, with more of that delicious caramel, or butterscotch, whatever you care to call it. Sure enough, the cake got baked, and it got iced, and it sat for just a little bit, because we could hardly wait. I don't think in my family, my immediate family, we ever waited for a cake to cool. We were always looking forward to it so much, we'd eat it while it was still warm from the oven. And we cut generous pieces of that cake. None of that thin stuff. Oh, no, give me a generous piece of cake. Give me a 1/12 or an 1/8 of a cake. That's a piece of cake. I'm not so greedy as to eat a 1/4 of a cake, not at one sitting. Well, not at one cutting. But I don't think a cake ought to be cut into 24 pieces. That's too thin. Oh, it was so good. It was so delicious. And it tasted like talking to my father and laughing. And it tasted like talking to my grandfather and laughing. And it tasted like knowing my great-grandfather had stomped around my grandmother's kitchen and slamming the oven door to perfect this ritual, this little thing that my family does called stomp cake. Well, any road. I'm sure that your family has little rituals too. I hope that that's the case. And if it's something like the Musgrave ritual, that cut me in on the treasure. If I've helped you find a solution at all. And do you know, if your family doesn't have some odd little tradition to distinguish it from every other family in the world, maybe you ought to invent one. The Tiger family's stomp cake ritual started somewhere. Maybe your family's ritual starts with you. Well, it's probably late. You ought to go to bed. Good night.